And welcome back to the Sandy Gholston BookTube channel. As I decided to pop up here tonight, just trying a different time to pop up on here live to see what the people are doing. For those people, usually when I do this, it's either a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. And for people that I know who are on the West Coast, it might be a little bit more difficult for them to be able to join the channel for this. So I decided, you know what, let's experiment and let's try one here at night and see how things go. But as you can see a little bit in the chat, what I'm going to be working on tonight, since I was already going to do it anyway, and I decided, you know what, I'll just go ahead and jump on here live and we can just, work on things together. So I'm going to be working on an outline. I've got the outline for this 5-book series that I'm going to be working on. It's going to be a big labor, hopefully of love, during the next 12 months or so, that I'm going to try to get as much done as possible with this project. So I definitely want to focus primarily on the first book in this series. I've never written a series before, and I've written a lot of books, most of which have just been for my pleasure, not necessarily to publish, but I should be doing a little bit more of that. But this one is something I'm really excited about, again, because I've never done a series before. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun to be able to bring this kind of a series to people. And if you've been on some of the lives here previously, then you know that I've really am shaping this as to be kind of a blend of some stories that you guys are probably very familiar with. So it's going to be a blend of kind of like the Hunger Games, a little bit of the Hunger Games, a little bit of the miniseries V science fiction back in the 80s. I think they redid the series and brought it back for a few seasons, I think, maybe in the last like 10 or 15 years. I never really watched that, but I did see that they brought that back. And the Manchurian Candidate. So it's going to be a little bit of that too. So it's kind of a blend of all three of those. And two of those, I think the Manchurian Candidate and, of course, the Hunger Games. If you're on here and you're a BookTube person or an AuthorTube person, you probably are very familiar with the Hunger Games. So again, this is going to combine this 5-part series that I'm going to do. This 5-book series is going to be a combination of those three. So the Hunger Games, the Manchurian Candidate, and the miniseries V from back in the 1980s. So if you're not familiar with V, you should go look it up. It was a pretty cool series. I got to say, I mean, the graphics and the special effects, special effects is probably a better way of saying it, may not hold up to today's standards for a lot of people, but it was pretty good, pretty innovative back in the time. So as you can see, I'm dressed pretty casually today. I have the hat on, not because I'm cold, but because I need a haircut. So, so since I am in need of a haircut, I have instead elected to just cover things up a little bit. So let's see. Divided by Sight. Hey, that sounds awesome. Thank you very much. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a really good project. It was one of those projects that it just like came to me one day. I was sitting on the couch doing something. I don't know. I was maybe watching TV or something. And usually when I get a story idea in my head, I try to write it down as quickly as possible. Even if I never do anything with it, I try to write it down. So, I think I picked up the laptop, grabbed it, and I started sketching it out. Just real basic, just to make sure I got it before I lost it. I think I was like getting ready to take a nap or something when it came to me. And so I just jumped right on it and wrote it down. And then as I started writing it, I started putting together the outline, the basic outline, so I wouldn't forget it. Then I just started to develop it more and more and more. And pretty soon, I think I'd been at it for like probably half an hour just outlining it. And I got a pretty good outline down. So I'm pretty happy with that. So, okay. This is going to be a project, like I said, is going to take up probably all year. I don't know if I'm going to write every single book in the series next year. That would probably be pretty ambitious, but I'm going to certainly focus primarily, just take it one step at a time. So I'm just going to work on that first one as we move along. So let me go ahead and set up the timer. And so when we do sprints, what we typically do is we do 15-minute sprints. So just kind of get on, and whatever you're working on, if you're reading a book, you're welcome to join and tell us about the book. If you are working on a writing project, then you can certainly chime in about your writing project and see if you can get your word count in. That word counts are not competitive, but they certainly help to keep you focused a little bit when you kind of need. Sometimes people need a barometer for where they are and the progress that they're making. So let's see. It's interesting. Sometimes when I've awakened in the middle of the night and I had this story idea, and there have been a couple times when I didn't write it down immediately, and poof, it was gone. So um, when you just get that inspiration, you just gotta jump on it right away. So that's my one piece of advice, right? If nobody takes any other advice, whether they're watching this live or they're watching the replay on the channel, then take hopefully that piece of advice. Okay, so let me go ahead and share screen. Get this set up. So I'm going to do 15 minutes. We'll call this mini sprint number 1 to take us until 9:40 p.m. or so. So let's go ahead and get that down. So I'm going to start this little writing sprint right now. And like I said, I'm working on outline, so word count's probably not going to matter as much for me with this particular sprint. Hold on, let me go super full screen here. Do that better. So that looks a little bit better. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, mini sprint number 1 is in the books. And let me see. Just had a Divided by Sight is asking, okay, Margaret, help me find the channel. What kind of things do you write? So that is a really good question. So when I first started writing, my focus was mainly kind of romance story fiction, and I also was really into sports fiction because it just felt like there wasn't a whole lot of that out there, and I am a sports fan, so I was trying to do some of that, and also a lot of diversity type topics, topical issues of things that are going on, so kind of contemporary, a lot of contemporary type of writing. But one of the things with this particular going into 2021, let me put it this way: going into 2021, I have a stated goal that I'm going to expand my reading interests. So, from a reading standpoint, I'm going to be reading a lot more fantasy. I'm going to be reading a lot more science fiction in the year to come. I also want to expand my reading of diversity related books, not only diversity in terms of the content itself, but diversity in terms of the authors that I'm reading. So I really want to work to diversify that. So those are 3 significant points of emphasis for me from a reading standpoint. And I think that's going to translate over to what I'm writing as well. So I want to really work on expanding my writing interest. And that's why the story that I was talking about earlier is so important, because it's going to be very different. It's going to be kind of a dystopian type of piece with some science fiction elements. So it's really exciting because I haven't done this before. So it's probably going to take some research, and it's going to take some reading to get a feel for how writers deliver that kind of story. So I'm really excited about that, to explore what other writers are doing. I'm reading a Sarah J. Maas book right now I think is going to help me to be able to kind of sharpen that focus by seeing what other writers are doing. So Sarah J. Maas is an author that I'm going to be looking at reading more in the year to come, and then also Brandon Sanderson is another that I'm going to be looking at reading. The Sarah J. Maas book I'm reading right now is A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I'm about 100. Let me check here. 119 pages into that. So that's pretty exciting. It's been a pretty fun read. It started out really, really fast, really well. And I read I read part of the book, I should say, on the Kindle. And then I read a little bit more of it I listened to it through the audiobook. So that was a long-winded answer to a simple question that you asked me. And I kind of almost went off the rails there. Neat. Working on blur for my poetry collection. I am so envious of people who can write poetry, because I'm not going to say I can't write it, because I've never really tried it, but I've never really tried it because I'm scared to try it. So who knows? I may give poetry a try one of these days. It's it intrigues me, it fascinates me, and yet it's kind of scary at the same time. Let's see. Paranormal romance. Oh, that's kind of interesting. I'd be interested in hearing more about that. That sounds like a really interesting topic. Paranormal is something that's, especially when I was a kid, that was a really interesting kind of genre for me to watch. I shouldn't say not genre in the sense of reading, but in the sense of movies that I would watch when I was younger. So that was kind of exciting. Let's see. Yeah. It's interesting. This is definitely the time to start setting your 2021 goals. And I did that. Divided by Sight, you might have seen that. I was collaborating with Margaret and others as we got together yesterday and did a live to do some planning for 2021. And that was really, really cool to be able to get together with people and to think more broadly about our reading and to map it out to make sure that we get a good range of reading and to look at what we did this past year and then try to improve upon that to try to maybe hit some goals that we didn't necessarily hit for 2020, and then we can look forward to hopefully hitting those goals in 2021. So I was definitely appreciative of being invited on that panel. It was a lot of fun. So definitely go over to Margaret Pinard's channel and check that out. It was really, I think it was about an hour and a half, and we really were quite productive. So lots of fun with that. Sweet. So you guys are having some good conversation there. So, well, let me catch you up with what I did on the first sprint before I jump into the second one. So the first sprint, with this particular series that I'm working on, right now I'm working on the character sketches. And the character sketches are kind of complex because there are 4 regions. And each region requires 2 key characters. So there's 8 total key characters, and then there's 1 overall main character that's going to be the driver for this story. So I've been working on developing that main character to make sure that character is on point with what I want. And then to have the complementary characters, some who are going to be all in supportive and some who are going to maybe be engaging in a power struggle. So those are the kind of contrasting characters that I want to be able to add to make sure that the story has a flow to it and that there's support for ultimately what's going to happen, but at the same time to make sure that there's enough tension and conflict that you don't get bored. So that's one of the things that I'm really working at right now. Yeah, creating characters is really fun, and it's a. I'm not sure what your experience is, and I'd be interested to hear what your experience is divided by sight, because one of the hurdles that I always try to clear or work to clear is how much do you want to tell about the character versus how much you want to leave to the reader's imagination, because there's so many things that you could say. You could describe right down to eye color, shoe size, and all kinds of things that you could get really deep in and just kind of sprinkle them in here and there over the course of the story. And so, how deep do you want to get into that versus how much do you want to leave to the reader's imagination? Because sometimes for me, I find myself wanting to know, like, what does the author think the character looks like? And then the author's probably back there saying, well, I want to know what you think the character looks like. So leaving something to the imagination is part of the balancing act between what you want to describe and what you want to leave to the imagination. Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting approach. Role playing as the characters while writing for them. That's an interesting approach, and I hadn't necessarily thought about it like that. But that is kind of interesting. It's interesting because when I develop a character, I have a picture of what they look like to me, and then again, I have to strike that balance. Like, how much do I want to force my vision of the character on other people versus how much I want them to grow with the character and not be bogged down with what the character looks like, but be more concerned about what the character is thinking and how the character is supposed to react in certain situations, and let the reader start to feel as if they've created the character themselves. And so that's, again, part of the fun of it all. So, all right, I think I'm caught up on some of these messages. And let me do this. Okay, sorry for the earthquake there. Running the broadcast off of one laptop and then writing on the other one. Not sure if that's how other people do it, but it's just kind of how I do it. All right, let's see. So we're going to start this next mini sprint. So I'm going to continue developing these characters. As I mentioned, there's 8 core characters, one main character. And so the 8 core characters right now, I'm just trying to develop them a little bit and to get a contrast between among the characters so they don't all sound the same. So some of them look different. Some of them come from they're of different ethnicities and races. They come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. They come from different cities. As a some grow up on a farm, some grow up inner city, some grow up in the suburbs. So just trying to come up with different characters and then trying to build their personalities. So you're showing their personalities as opposed to me telling you what their personalities are supposed to be. And so I got a plan for the long haul there. So, okay, so it's 9:51 Eastern time here. Let me go ahead and reset the clock and then bring the clock on up in here. Okay, there's the clock again. So I'm going to set this for 15 minutes and I will chat with you guys. If you guys throw some messages in there, I'll chat with you. It's not like a writing sprint with a novel when I'm in the middle of it. I'm actually finishing up a novel, but because I'm like 98% done and I just need to focus. And sometimes doing live and then focusing on that is a little difficult when you're at the end. I know how I want to end it. So I'm not worried about that, but I just really need to focus when I'm at the end. So I decided to work on this outline. So, and the piece that I'm just finishing right now, this is the piece that I was almost done with in October. And then I put it on the back burner so I could work on the new story that I was supposed to write for National Novel Writing Month. And I did actually write and finish that story. I met the goal of 50,000 words for NaNoWriMo. And then I ended up NaNoWriMo with, I think, a little over 60,000 words. And then it took me about 75,000 words to finish the novel. So I was pretty happy with that. Okay, so let me go ahead and start the clock and 15 minutes. So if you guys are writing, let me know how you're doing. And if you are reading, that is perfectly fine. Let me know what you're reading. And if you have any questions or comments about the writing process or about character development, I've told people before I use the 3-act format typically with my writing. I don't know what formats other people use, but that's the one that has been recently most successful for me, as opposed to being a pantser, which I was for most of my writing that I've done throughout my life. So, okay, here we go. So I'm gonna hit the start button. Okay, back here with the people. Let me just see what guys have been getting it going here in the chat here. Let me see what's going on here. I gotta go catch back up. So I threw the question out there: what book or books inspired you to read and or write novels? And it's always an interesting question to me. And before I give you guys my books that really got me going, let me see what you guys are talking about here. Let's see. You mentioned Brandon Sanderson, and that's Brandon Sanderson is definitely somebody I'm going to be reading more. You mentioned Hunger Games and Divergent, and I put in the chat that I actually have. I think it's Insurgents or whatever is the book that I have. I saw it in Goodwill, and I picked it up for like 50 cents. So it was worth picking up for 50 cents. So we'll see. I might have to see if I can get the other ones to see if that's something. And you're saying yes to my question about do you need to read Divergent in order. So all right, so that second book is going to apparently is going to go on the back burner here for a little bit until I can pick up the other two books. Let's see. Nicole says, I enjoy fantasy and gothic writing along with mythology. My current book is The Color of Magic. So let's go ahead and check out Nicole's book and see The Color of Magic. Yeah, that's one I'd be interested in checking out. Fantasy, again, that's an area that I definitely want to get into. Haven't read a lot with Gothic and mythology, but I would not be opposed to going down that route. And some more suggestions. I think I've heard about the Percy Jackson series, but I haven't actually read any of those. Let's see. Nicole says, when I was younger, I enjoyed mystery and thrillers, but now they bore me. I figure it out too quickly. It's interesting because I always talk to people about, figuring out how a story is going to play out and being able to kind of figure out the ending, like, a quarter of the way through the book. And I find a lot of times that that's true, but I know some authors try to throw a little extra crazy twist on the end. And then they throw a couple of red herrings at you to try to, take you off the scent, so to speak. But generally speaking, you're right. Yeah, a lot of times, well, because I think most stories kind of like, you're putting a different spin on something that's already been done before. So, the talent is to try to come up with something original. The Harry Potter series. The interesting thing about the Harry Potter series is I have the first one. My brother gave it to me, I think, for a Christmas present. And then the last one, which is about the size of a Chicago phone book. Yeah, I picked that up. I was in a big shoebox store and I saw stack after stack after stack after stack of this book. And I decided to impulse buy it. So that just goes to show you that certain types of marketing do work because they put all those stacks there, and eventually I picked up a copy of that book. So they struck a blow right there for the marketing industry. And that's my response to jumping into some Brandon Sanderson, because I feel like I'm the only booktuber that's not reading Brandon Sanderson. So I need to get my game tight there. Let's see, Percy Jackson's good. I read the series in a week. Wow, you read in a week? Starting Good American Gods, but I wasn't a fan of the audio. It's interesting. You mentioned the audio reader, and that does make a difference with audiobooks. I can tell you there was one time I was actually reading, I won't say what the book was, but I was reading a horror novel. And I wanted to read a horror novel, but the books are out of print and they're very difficult, very expensive to come by. If you go on like Amazon or you go on eBay, they are extremely expensive. So I was stumbling across on YouTube and I found the audiobooks. And so I started listening to them, and the reader was turned a horror story into a comedy. It was a male reader and he was trying to scream like a woman, and it was just pathetic. Honestly, I can't think of any. I wish I could say it in a nice way, but it was pretty pathetic. All right, let's see what else we got here. Um, Classics like Pi, the Brothers Grimm. The Brothers Grimm. I remember reading when I was a kid. I had, I think it was an anthology. It was like a real thick book I had when I was a kid. Okay, his point of view. Harry Potter. Don't read the last Harry Potter book. Only a third is good, which is the last part. Most of the time they're walking through the woods. So here's my question about Harry Potter, and the same thing I asked about Divergent. Do you have to read Harry Potter in order? Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have picked up on that. Um, but yeah, so do you have to read Harry Potter in order? Or can you read, can they stand somewhat independently? My impression was that they probably were best read in order, but I don't know if it's a requirement to read them in order. So that's a question that I'll throw out there. So let me answer my own question about the book or books that really inspired me to want to read and write. And so the first book that really got me interested in books was I read, let me see, I want to say I must have been in, I was in middle school, and I read The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. That was the first book that I really remember reading and liking. And I read it as part of a school project. So it was really fun to read that book. I really enjoyed it. The movie is very good as well. That's one where the book and the movie are both very, very good. So um, let's see. You're saying best to read in order, but it's up to you. Okay, so it sounds like there's some leeway there that you don't necessarily have to read them in order. Okay, so yeah, the Outsiders is great. Yeah, I did. I never read. See, she had Rumblefish, I think was the other one, and I never actually read that one, but I always wanted to. And I think I saw the movie pop up on some service that I have. It's a, it's a movie. I don't know. I think it came out around the same time, The Outsiders, maybe after that, maybe before. I don't really remember. So the second book that I'm trying to see if I'm trying to put this in order here. The second book that I read that got me fired up about reading and writing was Carrie by Stephen King. And that was a relatively short, by Stephen King standards, that's a very short book. But I jumped into that one, got really excited about reading. I liked the way he told that particular story, Carrie, and so it really hooked me. And then as I started to think more about Stephen King, and I started to collect some Stephen King books, I became aware that his wife was a writer, Tabitha King. And so the book that really inspired me to want to write was One on One by Tabitha King. And I've done a video about that on this channel. I actually have two copies of it. One is kind of a sacred copy that I've had for 20 plus years. I've had it for like probably 25 years. I've had that book, and it's all tabbed up, and it's got a lot of places that I just marked and that were just meaningful spots in the book. And so that was a book that just really hooked me, and it's still just revered by me to this day. So I'm just really excited about that. I'm assuming you're talking about The Outsiders, with that being a good book. So those three, and then a little bit, actually no, around the same time as the second two, I read J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye, and that was I'd never even heard of it till I was in high school, and probably no reason I would have heard about it. But we sometimes read books that had, if not been banned, were frowned upon because they talked about discomforting topics or approached topics that aren't necessarily discomforting, but in a way that is discomforting to some people. So usually when I see that a book is banned, if the book sounds even remotely interesting, I'm going to jump on it. I've talked about that with American Dirt, which is one of the 5-star reads that I had this year. I read American Dirt, and I really enjoyed it. I had hesitated to buy it because people had been criticizing it. based on issues of authenticity and who's allowed to write what and who's allowed to describe the experience of other people, other groups. And so that's a debate that'll probably never end. And that's a debate that'll probably never leave everybody satisfied. So that's why it's a debate. So that's how that goes. But yeah, I mean, to me, if somebody tells me not to read a book, then that definitely makes me more interested. It doesn't mean I'm automatically going to read it, but it's definitely going to make me more interested to learn more about said book. So, okay, let me get the clock started again. And I think this is going to probably be my last little 15-minute sprint here. Let's see. You know, I need to read more Shakespeare. Yeah, I really need to read more Shakespeare. I think, I don't know which, I think I did a live and I was asking people, I don't know what I did, but there was some point I was asking people like, what's a good Shakespeare book story to start with if you've never read Shakespeare before? So that's the question I'll pose to the audience. Those of you in the audience who have read Shakespeare, where would you suggest someone start if they have not read Shakespeare? I will tell you that I have a couple Shakespeare books. I think one is Othello, and I'm just struggling. They're in the next room too. I should probably go up and look. I think the other Shakespeare I have is maybe Macbeth. And then I have a huge Norton anthology book that I think has some Shakespeare in it. It's one of those books that's like gigantic. Like if you dropped it on your foot, you could hurt yourself. So I think there's some Shakespeare in that book as well. But yeah, that's a question for you guys. If you something pops in your head, Romeo and Juliet. That's a good one. I hadn't even thought about that one. That's a good one that I think people generally feel like they know that story. Although I'm guessing that most of the people who generally think that they know that story probably don't know it for real. They probably think that they know it. But that's interesting. That's one I'll definitely keep in the back of my mind as a good starting point. I'd have to pick that one up though. Unless there's an audiobook available somewhere that I can get as part of maybe my Audible subscription. I'll get it right. It's a subscription. So I'll definitely look at that and see what Shakespeare is out there for audiobooks. But yeah, Romeo and Juliet does sound very interesting to me. So I might be willing to check that one out. And also Sherlock Holmes too, because I do like mysteries. And I read some Agatha Christie earlier this year. And I read there was a Halloween book that she did, and it just slipped my mind, even though I read it like 2 months ago. But the name of it slipped my mind. But it was kind of an interesting book, and it was actually a good one to pick up as far as classics go during Halloween. So. Okay, so Hamlet and Macbeth, Midsummer Night's Dream. Okay. Hamlet and Macbeth obviously are two very well-known ones. As is Midsummer Night's Dream. That's definitely a well-known one too. Man, you guys are like some well-read people. Man, I need to get on your guys' levels, your ladies' levels here, because I'm slacking off in some of this reading. So, all right, let me go ahead and put the clock back up on the screen. And I'm going to do another 15 minutes here. I'm feeling pretty good about where I am right now. So again, I got 8 key characters that I'm sketching out just so I at least have the basics to work from. And then if I decide to ad lib, I can just add that to the character description if it's not already there as we move along. But or if I decide to change my mind, then I'll know what I need to go back and change about a character. If I decide that a character looks a certain way now, but I didn't think that they were going to look that way when I wrote the outline, then that makes it easier for me to go back and I'll know what specifically I need to change, especially if I'm making a significant adjustment to the character description. Yeah, Nicole's just killing the game right now. Yeah, we definitely got to get up on Nicole's level there. It's been great. I've been great having you got all of you in here. So it's really fun to get these kind of conversations going. Um, okay, yeah, yeah. I got to get. You know what I said, man? I got to get. There's a few classics that I was supposed to read this year, and you just reminded me of two classics that I was supposed to read. I was supposed to read Dracula, and I was supposed to read Frankenstein, and I have not read either of those. So I may need to see if I can audiobook those to make sure I get those in before the end of the year. I would like to get those two classics in before the end of the year, and then of course I'll look at some Shakespeare as well. So good stuff. Okay, let me go ahead and get the clock started. Plus, I got a cough, and I don't want to cough in the mic. So um, there we go. Okay, man, you guys have been chatting it up here, uh, and I definitely appreciate that. Some good stuff. Interview with a vampire. Let's see. Let me catch up with what you guys are talking about in the chat here. I did throw out the question, as you can see on the screen. I wonder if anyone can name a situation where the movie was definitely better than the book. And one that jumped out at me, where I think the movie was better than the book, is probably The Godfather. I watched the movies many times, well, at least the first two, many times before I actually read the book. The book was good, though. Don't get me wrong. The Mario Puzo book was good, and it filled in some gaps. It explained some things that you probably didn't get from the films, and it put some things into context. So I thought that was a pretty cool aspect of that. But usually the book is usually superior to the movie, and the movie ends up with a lot to live up to try to catch certain types of books. But you guys have made some interesting observations. Let me go back here and catch up with the chat here. Let's see. So Lord of the Rings was mentioned, and an amen for Lord of the Rings. Harry Potter films, divided by sight, like the Harry Potter films more than the books too. And I hadn't really thought about Harry Potter when we mentioned this. I know the books are pretty revered by a lot of people, and yet I've not heard a whole lot of people talk about the movies as much as I've heard them talk about the books. So I'm guessing you're probably right on point with that. Yep. Yeah, and then Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. Yeah, those are some pretty serious, some pretty hardcore fans there. Let's see. Interview with a Vampire. That's a good one. Let's see. Yuki jumped in here. Whoops, sorry. I think the books of Game of Thrones are good, but just thinking about reading all of them again makes my skin crawl. And you like, yeah, okay, so you experienced it once, but going back for another bout is not necessarily where you want to go. You know, that's another interesting topic. Because I was on a panel yesterday, a BookTube panel yesterday, and we were talking about the topic of rereading books. And some people were talking about, as they get into December, some books that you just want to reread. And I very rarely reread books. You know, even books that I really, really like. I think I could probably count on one hand with fingers left over how many times I've actually reread a book. So, but there's one I was actually thinking about rereading this year, and I haven't gotten to it yet. You know, I love the movie, The Book of Eli. It made me cry, and the book does not give the same feeling. Interesting, because sometimes you would, I guess maybe the visual aspect, it's possible could maybe create more of a reaction, especially if the actors are good and the writing is good for the script, that maybe it could give you a little bit more of that emotional reaction that you might not necessarily get from a book, because I'm guessing a book would probably have to work a little bit harder to get you to feel the emotion in a way that a movie could visually. So that's an interesting point there. But yeah, I was talking about rereading books, and we had that discussion, and I started thinking about books that I might want to reread. And if I just narrowed it down to books that I read this year that I might want to reread, the only one that really jumps to mind is probably the only book that I read, and I was really sad when I was done reading it. And it's not necessarily a book. It's not a book that's going to win my book of the year, but it was just a book that I enjoyed. And then the ending kind of had me hungering for a sequel. Though I think I read that the author said that he was not going to do a sequel. And the book was The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. And I got toward the end of that book, and I just didn't want it to end. And I'm a Riley Sager fan, and I discovered Riley Sager, pretty much discovered Riley Sager this year, and ended up reading all of his books this year. This year, you get to the end, and you get to like the end of 365 days, and it's like, man, it's been a long year. I didn't realize that I read his first book, Final Girls, earlier this year. I thought for sure I'd read it in 2019, but actually I read it in 2020. So it just shows you how long a calendar year is. So I ended up reading all of Riley Sager's books this year, including a new release that he had that came out this year. So Home Before Dark, which was another good one. So, and he announced that he has a book coming out next year, and then they moved the pub date up, I think, into June. So I'm looking forward to the next Riley Sager book. He is an auto buy for me. He comes out with something, and unless it totally turns me off the subject or the topic or whatever, then chances are I'm going to give it a try. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And I'm sure there'll be some other books that are coming out next year that I'm going to be excited to pick up, and some series I'm sure that'll continue. I do want to yeah, one of the other goals that I have for 2021 is I'm going to read more series. So I'm going to be looking for some of those to read as well. Some of the fantasy authors like Sarah J. Maas and Brandon Sanderson, they typically, from what I understand, write series. So we'll see if those are authors that'll yield me some opportunities to jump into the series game to try to expand on that one. Let's see. Guys still got the conversation going there. So yeah, I'm just excited. So coming up here on the channel, I am going to be doing my end of the year book awards. These are just my choices for the books that based on the books that I've read this year. So I'm going to be doing a fiction book of the year, a fiction runner-up book of the year, a nonfiction book of the year, a nonfiction runner-up book of the year, a pleasant surprise book of the year, and a disappointing book of the year. Doesn't mean it was bad. It just means it was disappointing. So those are some videos that I have coming up. I'm also going to do a video about the best book that I read each month. So be on the lookout for that as well. It'll be kind of like a year in review type of video. So that's some of the things that I have coming up here on the channel. So be on the lookout for that. I'm hoping that if I can get the work done now, these first couple weeks of the month of December, that hopefully I'll be able to chill out a little bit more with the set the camera up, film, edit, post videos, and hopefully I'll be able to focus just on jumping on here and flowing with you guys and being able to do a little bit more of these types of videos, which are actually pretty fun. I really like getting on here and being able to engage with people. So thanks everybody in the chat again for jumping in. Appreciate you guys. Just a great conversation that you guys had going on. We actually touched on topics that I didn't even necessarily expect to touch on here tonight. So this is unusual again for me to be on here at night. It's a Sunday night. Work week is coming up. Pretty much the last work week before the holiday break. So hopefully everybody is setting up for a positive holiday break and being able to hopefully safely spend time with your family, and hopefully getting a chance to rest a little bit and enjoy the holiday, and embracing the reason for the season as we look ahead. So it's hard to believe, but the year 2020 is getting ready to come to an end. And so I've also been working on my 2021 reading goals, which I started this video talking about. And I might even do a formal video just kind of laying that out, or I might come back here live and just kind of talk about some of the reading goals that I have for 2021. And some of those, of course, we talked about yesterday. I was on Margaret Pinard's channel, and we were able to have a panel discussion. The four of us kind of worked on kind of framing up some of our goals in terms of reading for the year and some points of emphasis that we're going to have with those particular reading goals. So it was a lot of fun to be on that channel and to just be able to chop it up and just talk about what we want to do, you know, in the year 2021. I think we're all hoping that 2021 is better than 2020, because 2020 is just kind of been on that stuff. And so I don't know what's up with 2020, but let's see here. I reread Jane Austen books. Like, you know, the interesting thing about Jane Austen, gosh, what was the one I was going to, Pride and Prejudice, I think was the one that from Jane Austen. Correct me if I'm wrong. That might be one of hers that I was looking at. I think that was her, Jane Austen. Let's see. Do you have a reading goal? 104 books. Mine is not 104 books. My reading goal this year was 50. And part of it is because I have a lot on my plate that I do with just, with obviously work. And then there's some extracurriculars. I do radio announcing for sports teams. So that commands a lot of time. And I also do reading in addition to writing. So those all take up time. So I set my goal rather modestly at 50 books for the year. And so far I'm at, I believe, 67 books read. So I'll probably sneak that up to 60 this year. And I'll get that posted on Goodreads, but I'm probably going to go up to 60. Whoa, you guys are in total lockdown. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too political because people have different opinions about it. But yeah, when you think of Christmas coming up and a lot of people wanting to spend time together, um, with Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and the different holidays that are around this time of the year. And then you look at New Year's. A lot of people like to gather together on New Year's Eve, and you do the countdown, you drop the ball, and people have the first kiss and all that kind of stuff that happens with New Year's Eve. So yeah, it's just a tough time all the way around with this COVID. And of course, talk about vaccines and whatnot. It's just a lot of emotions going on. Not ready to set a goal. I'm just, it's just interesting with goals and I'm, like I said, I'm probably going to sneak mine up to 60 books read. But I'll probably end up doing more audiobooks. So, if I do more audiobooks, I could end up, maybe closer to 70. I'm not going to set the goal there at 70, mainly because I don't like to lose. I'm pretty competitive, and losing is just not fun. I'm also very glad I found your channel. Thank you very much. That is so sweet of you to say. I really appreciate that. I appreciate just the support. I didn't necessarily get into it looking to, a lot of people get into it and they feel like if they're not getting a certain amount of views, that they're failing, and they get upset and they get frustrated with it. My goal is just to come on here and have fun, talk to people, talk about books, talk about writing, and if the viewers come in mass, then that's great, and I'm excited. But if it's just a small group of us and we're chatting and we're having a good conversation like we are tonight, then I'm really happy with that. So I'm just worried about just having good engagements with people and just slowly building good relationships and welcoming you guys here. And if I can help you guys find a little bit of entertainment for a few minutes, then that's just all the better. So thank you for coming through and for consistently coming through. It's much appreciated. Oh, your sister sent me a link. Oh, well, thank you. And thank your sister for me. I appreciate that. It's a lot of fun. I getting started on this was, it was a lot of fun because it helped me to discover, well, I already knew I had the passions for reading and writing books, and then being able to kind of bring it together on the channel and, having a little bit of talent for it has been a lot of fun for me. So I'm really appreciative of you all. And definitely thank your sister. And again, thank you for coming through here. I'm going to try. I might just end up doing Sunday night a little bit more frequently, and as well as kind of the normal Saturday morning one. I didn't have a chance to do on Saturday morning this time just because I slept in a little bit, and I knew I was going to do the mid-afternoon collab video. And so that was something that I was kind of gearing up for and wanted to make sure I was on point for that. Plus, I like watching college football and whatnot. So, okay. No, thank you very much. Wow. Okay. So it's a family affair. I like that. I appreciate that. I have school, evening work, writing. It is all very long. Okay. Yeah. It's just, we all just, a lot of us just have really busy schedules. And so it's just, it's just kind of nice. I know a lot of times people are just caught up in doing things, and sometimes it's nice to, like when I'm doing work, it's just nice to be able to throw on a YouTube video. I watch a lot of YouTube to the point that I almost don't even watch like cable and satellite TV anymore because I'm spending so much time on YouTube, just watching other YouTubers, and they're the real heroes out there because there's some entertaining content on YouTube, and so I'm just a small fish in a large ocean of talented content creators. Um, yeah, I think so. I tell you what, I very rarely just listen to an audiobook. Um, like the one I'm doing right now, the Sarah J. Maas book. I have it on a Kindle, so I've read part of it on Kindle, and I've listened to part of it as an audiobook. The audiobook is, of course, just the convenience of being able to do it through while I'm multitasking and doing other things, or while I'm just relaxing. So I can listen to an audiobook and listen to something else that's on TV and still be able to retain both. I have no idea how, but somehow I'm able to do that. So um, let's see. Um, I mean, I have to be a morning person to some extent because of work. So I have to get up and kind of be ready to go in the morning. And then I get my Saturdays and Sundays sometimes where I want to just sleep in a little bit. But usually I'm up and functioning. It just so happened that I just didn't have a chance to get up Saturday and Sunday mornings and do the usual videos. I was also kind of trying to think about what I wanted to work on because I'm at the end of a novel writing project, and it's kind of hard to, when you get to the end, and I have to really just like focus really hard on the ending, and trying to do a live stream while really trying to focus, that can be a bit much. So sometimes I just when I get to the end of a book, I'll just instead of doing a live, I'll just write it, and I can be able to think a little bit more clearly without distraction. And so that's one of the reasons I'm working on the outline for the upcoming series. Yeah, I think so. Well, I'll tell you what I have is, I have a Kindle Fire, and you can, the audio, you buy the Kindle book, and that costs the price, and then you buy the audio book. But you can get I think you can get like a subscription to their audiobook service. I think it's tiered subscriptions. There's like a baseline subscription, and then of course there's a higher level subscription where you get a lot more books, or you get a reduced rate for the audiobooks. So it's audiobooks are more expensive than you would think they should be. No disrespect to authors who work hard, deserve what they get. Another early bird. Let's see. I love the cafe blogs, since restaurants and cafes are. Oh yeah, yeah. It's just it's a different world that we're in right now with everything. And boy, I tell you what, how many people wish that they had invested in Zoom before the pandemic? I mean, you probably would have been able to make a lot of money because Zoom has taken us to the future that we saw in cartoons with the Jetsons, and now here we are now with things going on. It's just amazing how much the Jetsons, the old cartoon, just kind of foreshadowed a lot of what we're doing right now. So it's just amazing how cartoons are just so clairvoyant in terms of figuring out how things are going to go. I'm getting up at 4 a.m., so I appreciate your evening and morning streams. Yeah. I'm thinking evening. A lot of YouTubers go live on Sunday evening, and I think a lot of times people are at home and they're chilling out at night, and they're getting ready for the work week. And sometimes you want something to listen to or to react, and it's just kind of a nice and relaxing time. You've got your dishes done, you've got your laundry done, and you're getting ready for bed, and you can just pop on your favorite YouTubers and just kind of listen to them a little bit. So, who knows? Sunday night might become the new tradition. It's just a good time to be able to do it. And I've got some friends on the West Coast. Some of you may be from the West Coast that sometimes have a little bit of a harder time when I do the morning ones, and they're not able to get on here in time because of the gap in time. Although it's like 10:30, so it'd be like 7:30 in the morning on the West Coast. So, or Or you 6:30? I don't know. Whatever. You guys can tell me. You guys are probably more experts on that. But it's a lot of fun. So we'll see. This might be the new tradition, but be that as it may, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here for the evening. So thanks to everybody who came through and chatted. I appreciate you all, and be on the lookout on the channel. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing and keeping up with the next lives. I'll try to be a little bit more faithful in terms of putting the preview up there to get the live set up ahead of time so you guys can see it, and just click to be reminded that the broadcast is going to be taking place. So be on the lookout for those. I might do some lives here during the week, so you might also consider being on the lookout for those. Those would definitely be in the evening after work hours, and then we'll see what comes up over the holidays. You guys might need an escape from your family. Sometimes it's good to reunite with the family, but then sometimes when you spend a little bit of time around the family, sometimes you need a little bit of a break away from them. So maybe I'll be able to provide you that little bit of a break. So because of the pandemic, I will be here alone. So I might need you guys to become my extended family. So that's going to do it for tonight. Thanks to everybody for coming out and being a part of the broadcast. And I'll let you guys know when the next one is coming up. And you guys can feel free to join in, invite a friend, invite a sister, invite a brother, and invite an enemy if you need to. So whatever you choose to do, I would definitely welcome you back for future broadcasts. So thanks, everybody, and have a good night and have a great